7:11 on a Friday morning. It's Friday, October 25th. Good morning. What is going on? Well, we're going to tell you what's going on in the weather at least through the weekend and probably into next weekend too. And of course, our Halloween forecast, will continue to update that as the kids are getting ready to put on those outfits and get out there in the cold or the warmth or the rain or the snow. Well, anyway, we'll let you know. Here are the hazards across the country this morning. These are the watches and the warnings. Let's start up there in Montana. It's a high wind watch for parts of the Rockies. And wind is going to play a big factor in our forecast as we continue here. So let's see, freeze warnings for parts of Colorado, also into Kansas and Nebraska a little bit, and some fog. Louisiana, Texas, Gulf coasts are your main issues this morning. Let's check out our weather spotlight as we head into Aberdeen, South Dakota. If I ever do move from Western Iowa, I'm hoping it's Pierre, South Dakota. I'm not planning on moving, but I'm just saying. I love South Dakota. Pierre would be the place for me, I think. But anyway, here is the forecast. We're looking at increased winds as we get into the latter part of the weekend and into early next week. And so our temperatures that have finally cooled off are going to warm back up. So today's highs, mainly the 50s here, area-wide for South Dakota into extreme western Minnesota and a little bit of North Dakota on this map. And then as we get into Saturday, a little warmer, 58 to 68, and then Sunday, warmer, 65 to 74. And you can see those south winds kicking up this weekend in South Dakota. So that is our weather spotlight. Low temperatures right now, right now-ish across the country. A big area. I mean, this should be the case this time of year where we have a big area in the 30s and a few 20s across the northern plains into the central plains, through the Rockies and to the northwest. We see plenty of 20s here and some 30s. 40s when you get to the west coast, 50s down into California, even some 60s down in the desert southwest, 60s also for most of Texas into Oklahoma, into Arkansas, Louisiana, back into the 50s, 60s up into Missouri and parts of Illinois. But when you get into the northern, I should say the upper Midwest, we see lows this morning in the 40s. That's what we have here in western Iowa. Even some 30s here in western Iowa, 30s and 40s into Minnesota, 20s in northern Minnesota. You get to the East Coast, and we'll go 50s for the Southeast, 60s for Florida, mid-40s into the mid-Atlantic, 30s Virginia, though, and 30s from, say, Ohio into West Virginia, up into parts of Pennsylvania. We transition into 20s for Pennsylvania, New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Starting out this morning. Here's your surface this morning. Our cold front moving through the Midwest, and that's where we see our scattered storms this morning moving eastward into the Ohio River Valley, down into Kentucky and Tennessee as well. And for the Northwest, we see our scattered snow showers for the Cascades into the Olympic Mountains, and it's rain for the coast of Oregon, Washington, and parts of Northern California. Highs today getting knocked down in the plains, so just barely above average from West Texas all the way through the plains, all the way up to the Canadian border. Ahead of the front, temperatures teens above average for the eastern half of Texas into Oklahoma, Arkansas, the southeast through the Tennessee River Valley up into Ohio, and then temperatures right around average for, say, the Northeast, and temperatures slightly below average for parts of the Pacific Northwest, although as you get down into California and the Southwest, we're back to single digits to near 10 degrees above average. Highs today, still 90s for desert Southwest, still 80s for parts of Southern California inland anyway, and then 60s as you head up the West Coast. Inland for the Northwest, a lot of 50s, some 40s. As you get into the plains today, again, we talked about the Dakotas, 50s into Minnesota. But some 60s when you get down here into Iowa. We'll be upper 50s where I am in western Iowa. Then you get further south, of course, warming up, 70s for West Texas into Oklahoma. And then you see some 80s, even near 90 from Texas into the southeast. Mid-Atlantic, pleasant enough, upper 70s, and then transitioning to 60s, even 50s as you head into the northeast. For tomorrow, what are we looking at? Well, our cold front makes eastward progress and a little bit southern progress too. So we're looking for rain across Tennessee, into South Carolina, North Carolina, more scattered when you get back towards Arkansas. Further north, our rain turning to snow in some areas, or at least mixing with snow for parts of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And then back in the Pacific Northwest, our next system, scattered showers and storms along the Oregon coast, becoming more of a steady rain or snow depending on elevation, Northern California, Oregon, Washington, getting into Idaho. Temperatures for tomorrow, we're starting to see those warm temperatures get back into the northern plains. So we're starting to see 10, 15 degrees above average for parts of Wyoming, Montana, moving into the Dakotas. But still pleasant enough here in Iowa, just single digits above average. That's the same for Kansas, down into West Texas, a little warmer into the southeast and a little cooler behind our front for the Ohio Valley into the northeast with, single digits below average, but still below average. And then the Pacific Northwest, mostly slightly above average, except for the Oregon and northwestern Oregon into western Washington, a little below average. Those temperatures look like this, still 50s and 60s for Oregon and Washington, Idaho, Montana, 70s for California, still 90s for the desert southwest of southern Arizona. We get into the Great Basin, a lot of 60s here. And we get into the plains, we're looking at 70s, creeping back into the Dakotas, still hanging into the 60s here in Iowa, 50s into Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Great Lakes, including Michigan, Ohio, northern Indiana, 50s and 40s for the northeast. But the southeast still warm, mid to upper 80s. Our 48-hour precipitation looks like this. A lot of this heaviest rain is what fell late last night into this morning. So I'm talking eastern Iowa towards Chicago down into northern Missouri. Most of these showers have ended or are ending. But for the next 2 days, this is the bullseye for up to 2 inches of rain for parts of eastern Iowa, and then closer to an inch as you get towards Chicago. Lighter amounts north and south and east. And then the Pacific Northwest is the other area with the rain showers up to 2 inches for the Olympic Peninsula of Washington, up to maybe an inch for the Washington Cascades and along the Oregon coast, and lesser amounts further inland. All right, let's get into Saturday's forecast. And our cold front all the way through the east and through much of the southeast, cooling off here with some scattered showers. And then the northwest is our next system, spreading showers of rain along the coast, and then a mixture depending on elevation from the Cascades and inland. And some of that rain now getting down towards San Francisco. Rain mixed with snow for Reno, for example, Carson City, up to Winnemucca, Nevada. And those anomalous temperatures on Sunday, below average now with that system in the northwest, getting much above average for the northern plains and sneaking back now into the Midwest. So, warming up here in Iowa, also Kansas and Nebraska and Oklahoma and Texas. And it's going to be windy. Those south winds bringing back the warmth into the plains and also our high fire danger. That cold front moving through the southeast, dropping temperatures below average for, say, South Carolina, North Carolina, mid-Atlantic, and up through the northeast, still staying below average here. And a little bit of wind, too, so it'll be kind of cold for the northeast. Our highs on Sunday for the northeast, 40s and low 50s. Mid-50s when you get into Pennsylvania. But again, with the northwest breeze, it's going to feel cooler than this. 60s, even all the way down into North Carolina. I do that sometimes. Near 60, Columbus, Ohio. 50s for Michigan into Wisconsin, northern Minnesota. But the plains heating up, 70s return all the way down from all the way from the Canadian border down into Kansas, and then 80s for Oklahoma, 80s to near 90 for Texas. We're still looking at mid 90s for Phoenix, and Pacific Northwest, a lot of 50s along the coast, 40s inland with some 50s there. All right, let's take a look at our European model today. I'd like to mix things up a little bit. Starting with this morning, here are your showers from Chicago through eastern Iowa down towards Kansas City. This was actually midnight, so earlier this morning. And then as we get to about current time, we see those showers ending from west to east, now moving into the Ohio Valley, parts of Indiana, Michigan getting wet this morning, and a few scattered light showers back towards Arkansas. Some cooler air dipping down into the northern plains and the upper Midwest, but for the most part, kind of quiet. And then this cold front's going to make progress into the northeast as we get later into the day. So this is noontime-ish, depending on your time zone. And as we get later in today, so this is this evening, this is close to midnight, we see that cooler air dipping down into the Great Lakes, and this will be moving into the northeast. And then as we get down the Pacific Northwest, we see some showers for Washington State. And then as we go through time here, I don't know why I have, let me see what I can do here. I'm cutting off the East Coast, and I don't want to cut off the East Coast. Let's do this. If I can. All right. Well, we're going to have to cut off the East Coast, or I'm just going to have to go back and forth because this will show us the East Coast. So let me do that because things are going to get, you see that cool air moving into the northeast with some breezes. And so this gets us into Saturday night. And then as we get into Sunday, we see a little bit of light snow even, but some chilly temperatures Sunday and some breezes too. So it's going to be kind of cool for the Northeast this weekend as we get into Sunday and then into Monday. Monday, we start to see some interesting weather moving back into the Great Lakes and even into the Rockies. So this system here, dropping into Utah and Wyoming, into even Colorado. As we get into Tuesday morning, we're looking at some activity here into the Rockies. This is going to turn into a system moving into the plains just before Halloween. So here we go, some snow, especially for Wyoming, back into Utah, Colorado, scattered a little bit further to the north and west, but this gets us into Tuesday morning, the 29th. Also see some showers here in Minnesota into the Great Lakes. This low really gets going. As we get into Wednesday morning, this is midnight, this is early Wednesday morning. So a line of showers now, Wisconsin through Minnesota, Iowa, Kansas, Oklahoma, with snow on the backside. On the light side for parts of Wyoming into Colorado. It's a mix for western Nebraska. And as we get further into the day on Wednesday, you see this front lining up. So all the way from Texas into Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, eastern Iowa, into Wisconsin. And we're looking at probably some severe weather here with this line as this cold front pushes to the east and straight south. And this is our cool off for many for Halloween for the center of the country. Also our next system moving onshore for the Pacific Northwest for a cool and unsettled time of it by the time we get into Halloween. This is midnight Wednesday. This is Halloween morning as this line of storms continues to march eastward from Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. There's Memphis and parts of Kentucky, Indiana. Again, this is around noontime. Unsettled weather for the West Coast. A lot of snow here. It's spotty rain showers for the Oregon, Northern California coast, but snow inland. And this gets us to trick-or-treat time. So unsettled weather for the Northwest with scattered rain or snow and kind of isolated. And then also around trick-or-treat time, you're going to see where this line of storms is. If it's past you, you're probably going to be fine. If it's heading your way, watch out, so keep an eye to the weather forecast if you're in the Ohio Valley, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana. This could ruin or play a big factor into your trick or treat plans. Now, behind the system, we'll see some of this cold air returning to the upper Midwest as we get through the rest of this forecast. That line of storms continues eastward as we head into Friday. We'll take a sneak peek at the next weekend. So this gets us into Saturday. These showers and storms fall apart. In the Northeast, we're starting to see more showers along the Red River, Oklahoma, Texas, some rain down here in Louisiana, and another little snow system, a little snowstorm forming back in the Rockies as we get into Saturday. This is next weekend, a week from tomorrow. And that system kicks out into the plains for another round of showers and storms. This is really good news here in the Midwest where we need the rain. Same for the plains. And as we get into next Saturday and Sunday, you can see that storm make progress and spreading some showers and storms ahead of it. And behind it, we see another system dropping into the desert Southwest with some snow, I should say, for places like Nevada and into Idaho and whatnot, and some colder air moving back into the plains late next weekend. So a week from Sunday, we start to see some of that colder air sink southward. So there's your forecast, not only through Halloween, but also into not just this weekend's forecast, but next weekend too. All right, next 6 to 10 days, this includes Halloween. It looks like our best chance for below average temperatures would be the Southwest, but really the eastern, almost half of the country, and then above average temperatures, basically the Rockies eastward. Precipitation wise, good news for the center of the country where we need the rain is the best chance of rain. And even some snow back in the Northwest, would factor into this above average chances of precipitation. All right, what does the GFS say about Halloween? Well, above average temperatures say, draw a line from Lubbock, Texas through Chicago and up into, say, eastern parts of Michigan. And east of that line is where we have temperatures above average around trick-or-treat time. And to the north and west of that line, basically below average or near average for the Dakotas and Nebraska, and then much below average as you head into northern California, into Oregon, Washington, Idaho. And those temperatures, actual temperatures, look like this. So Lubbock, Texas, 70s for trick-or-treating. East Texas, 80s, into Louisiana and Mississippi. Again, watch out for that line of storms, perhaps. As you head further north into Kentucky, Ohio, 70s. The Northeast, widespread 70s around trick-or-treat time, just amazing. 80s for Florida. Then you get into the central northern plains, upper Midwest, trick-or-treat time 50s, 40s here. For the Northwest, that's where it's going to be the coolest with that unsettled rain and or snow with temperatures in the 40s, a few 30s, and a few 50s. And that precipitation around trick-or-treat time looks like this, kind of a cool rainy time of it for western Oregon into Washington, snow in the Cascades. People live in the Cascades, so you'll be trick-or-treating in the snow again this year. And then widely scattered light rain from Texas, Arkansas into Indiana. Now, again, the European had a stronger storm, a line of stronger storms further east. So we'll see which solution plays out the best. And of course, we'll keep you posted right here. So that's your forecast through this weekend and next weekend, and a sneak peek at Halloween. And we'll continue to update you as we go. So we'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in to the Weather Mic.